Oh, welcome back. Cosmic, Frank Coastal Boys. We left it with Liam trying to persuade Florida that perhaps going to space wasn't the best of ideas after all. No, but is your real dad? He won't budge little princess blasting off in a rocket to space, will he? Especially when he finds out the only person who knows about flying rockets isn't coming, so the so-called responsible adult's a 12-year-old. I gave him a Drax phone and told her to call. Before it was too late, she fiddled with the phone for a bit and then said quietly, "Liam, I haven't got a dad." I don't understand. When she said she didn't make any sense, what do you mean? I mean, I haven't got a dad. It's just me and Orlando and Ibiza. But your dad travels the world and he named you after them places. We never go anywhere. My dad just left after Orlando was born. I don't know where he is. He had a big row with Mum and never came back. Even when he was there, he never did anything as I said. You know, taking pictures, buying ponies, anything like that. He just used to sit watching the Holiday Channel. That's where he got the names from. This was a bit unexpected. I said, okay, well, if you did have a dad, if you have a dad now, he would not let you sit on top of 200 feet of inflammable fuel. He'd not let you go thousands miles up in the air. He'd be very concerned at the thought of you experiencing 40G. He'd be worried if you went on a big ride. And this isn't a ride. The point is, this is not a ride. It's the real thing. Florida looked a bit surprised. But Liam, if I got famous, my dad, wherever he is in the world, he'd see me, wouldn't he, right? And he'd come back and find me, or at least he'd know about me. You know, he'd go around telling people that he was my dad. He'd be proud of me. That's why I want to be famous. That's why I want to go on the rocket. I wasn't sure what to say. I think I was probably quiet for a while because she said, "Liam, have you gone to sleep?" No, I'm just thinking. I realised I was all the dad that Florida had. It was time to do the right thing, the dadly thing, and give her exactly what she wanted. What we both wanted. There was one of those cardboard party hats on the table, the pointy kind with the tinsel on the top. I found a pair of scissors and started cutting it. "What are you doing?" When I finished, I held it up for her to see. I cut it into sort of a crown. It was a bit rubbish, but it was a crown. I thought it'd be easier to say if you were actually dressed for the part. I put it on her head and said, "Happy birthday, princess." She grinned and said, "You've still got to get me a proper present." Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll take you into space. We went back to the others. They were all standing around eating cake. I said, "All right then, let's get this party going." They all looked blank. They didn't really know any party games. I made them play Grandmother's Footsteps, musical statues in a game called Fish, where everyone had a fish shaped piece of paper and you raced them by blowing them. This went on for ages because Samson too had developed a very streamlined fish which Hassan tried to buy off him, and Max blew so hard he most asphyxiated himself. As it happens, I do know some card tricks. Dad used to teach them me when sometimes went out with him in the car with waiting on a long time on the rank. The other kids were amazed. Florida said it was a best birthday party ever. Next chapter, Quest Orange. In the world of Warcraft, the quests are all colour-coded. Great quest involve defeating people with fewer skills than yourself. They're very easy, but you don't gain much experience. Then they're yellow, a bit harder, orange, a lot harder, and red, certain death. I decided the best thing to do was treat this as a quest. Dr. Drax definitely gave us the impression she was sending us on a great quest. Maybe a bit yellow around the edges, but definitely not orange, and certainly not certain death. For a start, we had loads of backup. She took us to Drax Control so we could see for ourselves. It's a massive glass office with huge plants and a little water feature and dozens of people strolling around in white shirts talking into headsets, reading the Blackberries. They certainly looked like they knew what they were doing. "These are very clever people who will be steering your rocket," Dr. Drax said, "so you won't have to do a thing. The infinite possibility really is just a ride, and Drax Control is like the man in the fairground booth. All you've got to do is sensible and enjoy the view for a few hours. Oh, and do one simple little thing for me." And it did seem very simple. We had to press some colour-coded buttons in the right order at the right time. That was it. Because the infinity possibility is really a launch vehicle. That's why it's so big. It's going to carry something into space, a payload, a completely cosmic payload, to use your word, Liam. I'll explain it all to you. It's a kind of space minibus. I designed it myself. It's called the Dandelion because it doesn't have any engines, just these big silvery sails that catch the solar wind, just like normal sails catch the wind. And it will blow it across space. A spaceship propelled by sunbeams, as quiet and as traceless as a dandelion, hence the name. She showed us a model. It looked like a high-sided vehicle with lots of windows, like an ice cream van but with no wheels, and no ice cream man. Once it's separated from Infinite Possibility, the people at Drax Control were going to steer the ice cream van across space, back round the moon and back to Earth by remote control. Then it was going to do a lap of the Earth and head back round the moon. And it was going to keep doing that. One lap of Earth, one lap of moon. A kind of figure of 8 forever. It had comfortable seats that turned into beds. Dr. Drax's plan was, as soon as Infinity Park was open, people would pay to get into a small rocket, dock with a dandelion during its Earth orbit, and stay for one lap of the moon before going back down to Earth. A sightseeing trip round the moon in an interplanetary ice cream van. The dandelion was kind of a massive box under the living quarters of Infinite Possibility. All we had to do was shoot up into space, float around for a bit, and then, when Dr. Drax said so, press the buttons in the right order, red, orange, green, and that would blow the dandelion off into its orbit. The Drax Control then would bring us back home in the command module. The buttons are designed to set off a series of small explosive charges, red to separate the dandelion from the rocket, orange to blow the covers off, and green to make the sails pop out. We could detonate the charges from the ground, she said, but we thought best to keep it simple. What could go wrong? Well, nothing did go wrong, exactly. Not with the buttons, not with the charges, not with the dandelion. The thing that went wrong was us. Next chapter, launch minus 48. Countdown begins 48 hours before the liftoff. For the last 48 hours we had to stay in the crew quarters and not talk to anyone from outside. It was supposed to be a bonding experience. Also, all the food in the fridge and the cupboards was replaced with space food. Little packs of straw sticking out them, a bit like Capri Sun, but with meat and veg instead of orange juice. We were supposed to eat space food from now on so we get used to it. The packs had some worrying names though. For instance, saliva chicken and pork that makes you eat your own hand. Samson too said it was probably a problem with the translation. Maybe saliva chicken means mouth-watering chicken, he said, and perhaps pork that makes you eat your own hand is just finger-licking good. Maybe, said Flora, but I'll stick to ice cream. Me too, said everyone else. So we just sat there, sucking on space ice cream. 2 flavours, raspberry, like a breeze on a lake, or banana divided, and practising the colour coding button pressings on the computer. During the night there was a clanging sound like the lid had fallen off the sky or something. Everyone ran into the living room. When we got there, we're all huddled round together. I was going to get into the huddle when Samson too said, "What is it?" And I realised they were all waiting for me to sort it out. Hassan said, "Is it bears?" "Bears? Why would it be bears? Wait here, I'll go and have a look." I opened the front door thinking, what if it is bears? I couldn't see any or smell any. But I could hear a noise though, a slow, monotonous rumble. But I couldn't see anything except the Possibility building. Then I realised the building had changed shape. I stood and watched for a while before understanding what was going on. They were moving the rocket. Very, very slowly. It was trundling out on its tracks out into the desert, about 3 miles away. It was moving along the rails to the launch site. You could barely see anything happening, but you looked away and looked back again. You could see a bit more of the rocket had shuddered out of the building. It was like watching the minutes hand on a clock. The others all crowded round me and said, I said, "Come on, let's get back to sleep. It's just a rocket. Nothing to be scared of." I was thinking, that's so much scarier than bears. "I want my dad," said Samson too, and I just knew how he felt. Next morning there was a pile of presents waiting for us on the dining table. Some rubbery pencil casey type things called personal in-flight packs, and 5 of the latest Draxcom games consoles. They're called wrist stations. We'd had a visit from Space Santa. Wrist stations are quietly cosmic, by the way. They're basically Game Boys that fit on your wrist, but instead of having some squinty little screen, they project the game onto the wall like in the cinema, so you can have it as big as you want. They all came loaded with Orbiter 4, Stone Age boneheads and surfing Eskimos, except mine, which had professional golfer and test your own cholesterol kit. There was a note from Dr. Drax explaining that we could pack whatever we wanted in the personal in-flight packs, PIP for short, to take as personal luggage on the trip. We could take what we wanted as long as it fitted in the PIP. 2 minutes later, there was a wrist station territorial dispute. Aston and Max were playing Orbiter 4 together on one wall, and Samson 2 was using the whole wall to play Stone Age boneheads, so there was no room for Florida to play. I suggested that Florida and Samson 2 play boneheads together using the 2-player option, but that suggestion led to immediate off-screen violence. In the end, I told Samson 2 to stand nearer the wall to make his projection smaller. No. Everybody stared at me. This was a test of dadness. What was I supposed to do? Beg him, threaten him, shove him? If I couldn't control him here in the living room, what would it like in orbit? I moved the couch to the centre of the room. I checked he was lying up in the middle of the wall. Then, without even looking at him, I said, "Samson 2, sit down here." That's all I said. I didn't try and make it sound like I wanted immediate obedience. Then he held my breath. Samson 2 didn't look away from the wall and he didn't say anything. But he did move forward and around the couch. Then he sat down and carried on playing. His game had shrunk half size now, so there's loads of room for Florida playing. I said, "Now move to that end, Samson, and Florida, you sit at this end." Well, they both did it. Aston and Max weren't even looking at me now. I'd passed the test. But what happens if Samson 2 had just kept saying no? I decided then to pack Talkie Teen into my PIP. It really was too big and had to squeeze it in bit by bit, and was also nudging the rubber sides over the book's spine. I noticed all the dad things on it, the 2 overlapping tea stains like a figure of 8, the phone number written in biro, the petrol receipts. It was my dad's book, my dad. I wish he'd turn up now like he did when I got into that Porsche. I wish he'd turn up now and shout, "Stop!" Next chapter, some kind of lovely. At launch -6, I was still insanely hoping that Dad would actually turn up. Especially at launch -6, to be honest. Because at launch -5, they were going to do the spray-on Power Ranger spacesuit thing. The thing about spray-on spacesuits is that you have to have a bald chest before you put the stuff on you. So if you're a dad, you have to have your chest waxed. This means they pour warm wax all over you, then rip it off with strips of cloth. When the wax comes off, it pulls all your chest hairs off. At launch -5, my dad hadn't come yet, and I was screaming in pain and looking at a piece of wax currently covered in curly hairs that had been pulled off me. "There," said Dr. Drax. "The agony of re-entry been nothing after that. Apparently women do it to their own legs, and they don't even go in space after." After that, they sprayed on my spacesuit. It felt warm and tickly, and I was allowed to go back to the living room to wait for it to dry. When I got there, Mr. Bean was waiting for me. He shook my hand and wished me well. "You take good care of yourself now." I said, "I thought you were going to be taking care of us. I thought all we had to do was enjoy the view." He laughed. Then he said, "Since you mentioned the view, there was something I wanted to tell you. You got your pips right?" "Yeah." "Think hard about what I put in there. It could be your most important piece of safety equipment." "What? More important than the spacesuits?" "Maybe. You see, the thing about space..." "Yeah," I said, "it's full of dead people. You've already told us this." "Space is nowhere, do you see? It's not just far away. It's a different kind of place. It can get hold of you." "Are you saying you'll like it when you get there?" My mother used to say that. Did yours?" He looked out the window. Even though it's daylight, you could see the moon, pale and huge like a big balloon. He said, "Did you ever hear of Ed White, the first American to spacewalk a long time ago? 1965. First American to open the door into space, to dangle from a wire and look at Earth and see the whole planet roll beneath him. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Everything he knew and didn't know. His friends, enemies, places he'd been, places he'd never go to. All those just sitting there in his field of vision. And when it was time to go back inside, he couldn't tear himself away. And he was like, let me stay a little while, won't you? And isn't that America? Oh no, it's Africa. And, you know, the command pilot, Jim McDivitt, He had to ball him somewhere to bring him back to his senses. Do you see what I'm saying? No, not really. Florida had just arrived in a Power Rangers get-up and she said we were supposed to keep moving around to check for fissures and flaws. Mr. Bean went on. I'm talking about how to stay in one piece. Try to get hold of things that are important and good and true about your life. Up there, it's some kind of lovely. And maybe you need to have something in your heart. You know, something even more lovely to help you find your way home. Otherwise, maybe you could just become beguiled. Beguiled? I think that would be the word. I'll say good night. Good night, Mr. Bean. He smiled and said, call me Alan. Just as he's about to go to the door, Florida shouted, wait, Alan Bean, Apollo 12, 1969, that's cosmic. It was the first time she'd ever used my word. There probably isn't another word for being able to touch someone who's walked on another world. Wow, said Florida, an Apollo astronaut. That makes you dead famous, doesn't it? I mean, you had ticker tape parades and all those parties and you were on the telly all over the world. I wasn't on the telly much. Actually, I broke the television camera. We landed on the moon and I accidentally pointed the camera at the sun and burned it out. Imagine that. All the way to the moon and not getting any holiday footage. So, not much on the telly as some. What I remember is being on the moon. I remember every second, every stone, every star we saw. Sometimes it feels like I never came back. But I did come back. And you remember, where you're going it seems far away and dangerous. But you will come back. Which is what so much less exactly my dad said to me on the first day I walked to the Y school. As soon as Alan had gone, I wedged my old phone into the pip because it had pictures of Olmon and Dad's St. Christopher's statue. It once had fitted in it and been a bit broken. Cheers.